Well, hello. Hope everybody's doing well. Had a good week. So just to introduce myself, welcome to another episode of Embrace Live. So Embrace Church Darlington Live. We like to do this each Wednesday at 8 o'clock. And, if it's your first time joining us, well, welcome. It's great to have you with us. Please feel free to comment and question online. It's great to see that some people are joining us already. So hi, Sue. Hi, and Bill as well. They're great, amazing people who come along to Embrace Church. But this is obviously for much wider than that. Hello, Alan, as well. Brilliant to have you with us. Thank you for joining us. Very excited tonight. We've got Lynne joining us from the Bay Church in Whitley Bay. I think, is that Lynne? If I remember, it is. She's nodding on my other monitor. That's all right. I just had a moment of doubt. Hi, Tony. Thanks for joining us as well. So my name's Dave Dixon. I'm a member of Embrace Church in Darlington, and I have the honour and absolute privilege to be part of the team there. And it's great to worship with other people in the local area. But I'm really pleased that this series we're getting to kind of reach out, no offence, Embracers, but beyond Embrace Church, because there's more to life. You might not know this, than Embrace Church. All right, I'm so thankful to God and that I've been able to over the years meet lots of different people in lots of different settings from lots of different churches, doing different kind of things. But one of the big areas that I really I'm thankful for is music side of things. And so what we've been doing is we've had our series of My Story. And that's where people have been telling us a little bit about their, why they've made the decision in their lives to follow Jesus and what impact that's had. Okay, and if you haven't caught any of the episodes, they're all available via the Embrace Church Facebook page. They're all on there, but also the Embrace Church YouTube channel as well. So if you're catching this live, great to have you with us. If you're kind of catching it a little bit later on, and I know lots of you do that, then it's still great to have you with us, but just a little bit kind of delayed. Obviously, if you are here tonight, and I can see that Liz has joined us as well, which is great. Thanks for everybody joining in. And Paul has just popped up and said hello, they're great. But if you've joined us, then we really want to make these sessions interactive as always. And so we really want you to post your comments, post your questions. And so this series, we've had the My Story series. This series is all about worship leaders. Now, I've kind of coined that as my worship buddies. People, like I say, I've met in different kind of worship contexts, events, services, and so on over the years. And I'm really, really happy and pleased that Lynne is able to join us tonight. Lynne and I were chatting just before the kind of show started, and we were... It's funny how we kind of keep in touch via social media and kind of get glimpses into each other's lives. And it's great that we can do that. But actually, from actually physically meeting, I think it's only been, I'm looking at Lynne here for some reassurance, it's probably only been a couple of times, I would say, over a number of years, really. But, we like to keep in touch by seeing what each other's doing on Facebook and things like that. In a I have to say, a non-stalker kind of fashion, really. Hopefully in a safe... I'm looking for some reassurance. Yeah, Lynne looks like she's happy and smiling. I'll bring her in a moment. So, as always, we do, like you say, want this to be interactive and feel free to, ask questions. Now, I've mentioned the word worship a number of times, and you might be thinking there, well, what do we mean by worship? And I say this often in these episodes, really. We just want to clarify that, okay, I'm talking about Embrace Church. And then we've mentioned Lynne's church, which is the Bay Church in Whitley Bay. The reality is there's only one church, and I say this every episode, really. There's only one church, and that's God's church. And there's just lots of different flavours, and we meet in different places and so on. So, Darlington, Whitley Bay, wherever it may be, okay? There's only one church and there's just different flavours, all right? And when we're talking about worship, the Bible says, we look at the Bible, it talks about worship as a lifestyle, but often people can, when they say kind of worship and things from a church point of view, it often means referring to the music side of things, where, maybe there's, an organ, maybe there's a team of, musicians, etc., even drummers, musicians and drummers. It's always good to get some drummer jokes in there. and kind of lead congregational. So the group of people who have gathered together in that place, in that church building maybe, or somewhere else, doesn't have to be a church building, and now will sing out their songs, their praises, their prayers set to music to God in response to what God has done for them and is doing for them, and that relationship that they have, that living relationship with Jesus. Okay, so that's what we're kind of the context that we are kind of referring to in terms of the worship side of things. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play the worship opener just to give people a flavour, and then I'm going to bring Lynne in, and we'll say hello to Lynne, and we'll then obviously have a bit of a chat. Really, I've said it is a very informal chat as always over the next kind of 55 minutes or so now. And we just want to hear a bit of Lynne's story, how she's been involved in worship and how she is kind of living that out and doing it, and why, and what that kind of looks like. And as always, feel free to comment and question online. So here's the worship leaders opener, and then I'm going to bring Lynne in a moment. Here we go.
Praise the Lord, all my soul. Forget not what he's done. Forget not what he's done. Praise the Lord, evermore. He surrounds you with his love. Surrounds you with his love. Yeah. He surrounds you with his love.
And just before we bring Lynne in, just another plug there. The music that we and the footage that we use in terms of the countdown timing and that opening there is taken from our great friends over at Tees Valley Community Church, who form the Taking Ground music. And if you haven't heard some of them and the fantastic group of people, then obviously they're available. The songs are all available to listen to and download on their YouTube channels and Spotify, etc., all the streaming services. So really want to encourage you to take a look at and listen to Taking Ground music. Brilliant, fantastic group of people. Just want to say hello to Hannah, thanks for joining us, and Margaret, of course. It wouldn't be Embrace Live without Margaret joining us every week, which is great, thank you. And others as well. Okay. Liz, obviously, is just asking a question just briefly there. Does it keep going off for other people? I mean, I'm not aware of any technical issues there, Liz, but hopefully other people can answer that for you. Anyway, without further ado, let me bring in Lynne just right now, and let's say hello to her. Hi, Lynne, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks, Dave. How are you?
I'm very, very good. Thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking.
That's all right. So Lynne, obviously, I mentioned a little bit there that we were chatting beforehand, weren't we? And we said that actually we've just met on a couple of occasions, really, face to face. I think I would say over a number of years now, really, which has been kind of the worships, events and things like that, which is part of being the Burn 24/7 kind of movement. It's described as. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Is that all right?
Yep.
We might mention that as part of that. But Lynne, I mentioned that you go to the Bay Church in Whitley Bay. Yeah. We like to stalk each other on Facebook a little bit and stuff like that. But actually, saying that, we don't really know each other that well, other than that, really. So I think it'd be really good. Lynne, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, and then maybe we'll start talking a little bit more about your story, really, and then get into the worship stuff. Is that all right?
That's fine. Yeah, I'm married to a lovely guy called Douglas, and I have 2 kids. Rachel is my eldest, Mark, and they both live locally, which is great for us. Yeah. They're really good kids. They've both been married. Rachel got married about 4 years ago, a lovely guy called Carl, and Mark got married to Lisa last year during lockdown. We had to change the wedding from May to July, and they had their reception last Saturday. So that was a long wait, but it was...
Yeah. That's long photograph session, that, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Longest in history, that one. But as I say, we've been part of the Bay Church now. We were there at the inception. So it's been sort of 21, coming up 22 years now.
Wow.
So I went to Sunday school when I was a kid. I did the usual
Yeah.
thing. Left Sunday school when I was about 16 because there was basically no transition between the Sunday school and adult church.
Right.
And sort of me and my friends sort of couldn't work it out. So we stopped going. And then when Doug and I started courting, he'd gone to church, he'd made a commitment, but wasn't going to church at the time.
Right.
And then when we had Rachel in 91, we decided it was something that it wasn't really a conscious decision, but we both knew that we wanted to go back to church and bring her up in church. So we did the little tour, and we ended up at the church that we've been in for 21 years,
Yeah.
loving it. As soon as we walked in, we knew that this was home.
That's great.
That
Yeah. Yeah.
was it. And there's been ups and downs, as there is in any church life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But, it's real, isn't it?
Full of people. That's the problem, isn't it? Full of people, and people bring things along with them. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. But we knew that's where God wanted us to be, so we're still there. The kids have been through church and
Yeah.
don't know any different,
Yeah.
which is great. They see, is it everyone's family, so that's great.
Absolutely.
As for worship leading, I remember the first day I walked into church, and I sort of messed around with a bit of music in school, but nothing really major.
Right.
And I watched this music team, and I said to Doug, "Oh, I could never do that. I could never be on a worship team." Yeah. Because God sorts you out, doesn't he?
Oh yes. Yeah.
So he saw me through quite a few nevers. I could never be in a worship team. So I was on the worship team, and I could never lead worship. So I led worship. I couldn't lead worship and just be with me. I would need a team. Well, that ended up, I was leading worship by myself. I couldn't lead in front of strangers because I'm not a front row person.
Right.
I'd much rather be at the back. I've got to second row now. I'm doing really well. But God just dealt with all these nevers, and I didn't know about it until I actually looked back on it and thought, he did this very gently and without me realizing until I actually look back.
That's amazing, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I just say to people now, like, if they say, "Oh, I could never do this," yeah, you'll do it.
Yeah.
You'll do it. The best thing anyone ever said to me actually was, "When you lead worship, I don't see you."
Wow. What do you think
I
they meant by
love
that? Come on, tell us what they meant by that then.
They said it was just straight into the presence of God.
Yeah.
And it was nothing that I was doing or nothing that I was saying. And to me, that's sort of, if you can use the quote, that's job done.
Yeah.
It's not about looking at me. It's not engaging. It's just engaging with God.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been talking about, that, obviously in the last couple of episodes with different people. So we've had Mark Miller from Stockton Parish Church. We've had Helen Malborn from Tees Valley Community Church. We've had Hannah from Embrace Church. And, it's great that, as we talk about that, everybody's kind of saying the same thing. The kind of role description is to kind of get out of the way, really, like you say, to be, it's an interesting one, isn't it? That worship leader kind of role, that title that's given. You need to have a little bit of, which we've talked about, we've kind of said presence about you to a certain extent, but it's not about focusing on you. It's about facilitating people so they, like you say, the skill of a worship leader is to bring them together to then focus upwards, really. So I think that's a huge compliment and testimony to how well that you lead, that somebody's recognised that, and absolutely that we're not into, dare I say it, superstar kind of and I remember what Mark Miller says from Parish Church, which I did attend a church for a little while in a little season of kind of prior to moving into Embrace Church, and they talk very much about the platform it's not a stage. They refer to it deliberately as a platform,
Yeah.
because they don't want superstars up there. And absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I
We
mean,
try.
obviously Tony's just posted there. I'm just going to add it so you can see that she's just saying how much she loves the way that God's work. How much we say, no, we're never going to do that. I'll never do that. I'll never do that. And then gently, or sometimes, a nice, Holy Spirit shove into a situation kind of stuff.
Yeah.
How we put limits, and God just says, no, I've got plans for you. And I'm going to give you the tools and the gifts and everything that you need to be able to do that, as well as the opportunity. That's amazing. It's great. So within the Bay Church, do you lead regularly there? Do you kind of lead the team, or are you part of the team? Oh, like I'm talking about the worship team there. What's it look like? What's your role in the church then?
I was the worship team's leader.
Yeah.
But I handed that over to someone else so that I could concentrate on what God wants me to do now.
Yeah.
Which is more of a regional role, and the church has released me into that.
Wow, great.
So that's great. But I do still worship. I still lead worship, usually once a month, but depends how many people are available. Sometimes it's twice a month. And if I'm not leading, sometimes I'm, more often than not, on the team, but not in a leading role.
Yeah.
But so
Right.
it's
So,
quite busy.
Tell us a little bit about the Bay Church, just because I don't think I've actually ever visited. Whilst I follow it on social media, and it looks fantastic that obviously that you're doing, and the churches, and I don't think I've ever actually been there. Tell us a little bit about the church.
Well, I've got you down for doing a burn set, so you'll be coming soon, Dave. Don't you worry about that.
Happy to. Thank you.
It's a great little church. But it's not so little as in God's got some good plans for it. We know that. It's very much God-focused. We're not linked with anyone. The only things that we're linked with, our senior pastor, Reverend Alan Dickinson, is part of the Order of St. Leonard.
Right.
Which we have links with, but it's not as in, we're not sort of come under any other banner. It's just he's part of that order, which is it's really good. It's been great to sort of have a look at that and be part of that.
Yeah.
It's been really strange because we've had sort of a lot of changes as well during lockdown. But we've got a great range of things happening. We've had a lot of stuff actually starting from our church, which has been a privilege.
Brilliant.
Alan started the street pastors in Whitley Bay.
Fantastic.
And his wife Jackie had the vision for a food bank back in 2012, and that's the biggest. Well, it's the only food bank really in North Tyneside, and
wow.
I work there 3 days a week. It's quite a lot of involvement with that.
Yeah.
And it's a grand. We love it. It's very much a family. As I said, our kids have always been in. They don't know any different, and that's through choice. They, when they got to the teens, we didn't know whether they'd stay or not, find their own feet. But no, they're still very much part of it.
Yeah.
But
that's great. I mean, like you say, church is a family, and
very much,
absolutely. And we're all doing this thing called life together, aren't we? And and with family, like you've said, people bring ups and downs and all those kind of things, and we celebrate together. We have difficult times together as well, and so it's great. And I love the fact that you must think it's a pretty good church. You've been there for, was it 23? 20?
It'll be 21 plus.
21 plus. All right. I can almost stretch to 20. Well, 21 plus. But, you've been there a long time, it's fair to say. So, obviously, you can see just in the way that you talk about your church, just how much, you're a fan of it. And, obviously, and it means a lot to you. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it does. All sorts. We don't just have sort of wear one hat.
Yeah.
We do whatever needs doing. It's a case of if the job needs doing, we get on and do it. We don't do divas, was one of our very first.
Love it. We don't do divas.
Yeah, but worship's always been a big part of the Bay. Right. And for a lot of years, and we still do actually, there's a lot of songwriting, in-house songwriting, because
Interesting.
one of the things, we had a lot of visitors come to church who really encouraged us to not just sing the songs that we sang, but to actually write the songs for
Yeah.
the seasons of our church, for the seasons of us as individuals, and that's been a really big part of the Bay.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So,
so yeah,
I mean, that's maybe something we can talk a little bit more about if you don't mind, because I think that's
that's
really,
right.
really interesting and really, really important, really, particularly like you say, the reflecting the seasons that you go through, we all go through as churches, and obviously reflecting your journey really as a church family, and so on. And I
Yeah,
think we absolutely are made by a wonderful, amazing heavenly Father who is a creative God, creating all around us, and obviously we can express that our creative worship in lots of different ways. And if we're
yeah,
focusing on the musical side of things, the songs that we sing. So I'd really like to hear a little bit more
yeah.
about your involvement with the songwriting side of things, if that's okay.
That's fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Just you mentioned there that I think it's great as well that your church is releasing you to have more of a regional kind of role. You made reference to that, as well as obviously still continuing to serve in your home church and doing that, and and obviously whether that be leading worship yourself, or being part of the team, which is I would still say we're all leading worship, we're all part of the team, we're all doing that, absolutely.
yeah.
And maybe we can talk a little bit about how you prepare when you lead as well, because that's always good to hear, and so on. But what is it from a regional kind of point of view that you've been released into? You made reference to that a little bit.
That came as a word. Doug and I went up to Glasgow Prophetic Centre because we both really felt that there was something more that we needed to hear
Yeah,
from people who didn't know us, basically.
yeah,
So we went up, and the word I was given that I was a prophet worship leader,
yeah.
not a prophetic worship, a prophet worship leader,
Right. Okay.
and that God was going to give me the region to work in and to bring together worship leaders, musicians, and to raise the sound from the region.
Amen. Yeah.
So it's not the kind of thing that I could do as well as taking care of the people that I needed,
Yeah.
needed to work with. Um, so I took it to the leaders, and they said, right, we, let's do this. So it sort of goes a bit hand in hand with my role as burn director as well, because the relationships that I've built with that, and there are other people and ministries that I'm involved with
Yeah.
up the coast as opposed to sort of in my own region. And God, I can just see how God's bringing all this together. So he's given me, when you get that itch. And
Yeah.
I was listening to something yesterday, and I thought, yeah, this is what I need to do next. This is where it needs to go next. This is what I need to bring.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at that. But yeah, it was came as a nice surprise. So I handed the reins of the teams over to someone else,
Yeah.
and I'm still sort of finding my feet in it, because last I remember it was last Christmas. I was in the kitchen, and Doug and I were talking, and I said, I really want more. I want to do more, but I don't know how.
Mm.
Because one of the things that was said was that God would bring people to me. I
Right.
wouldn't have to go out and like batter down doors. And
Yeah.
I said, I want more than this. And within hours, I had emails from people from north, south, east, and west saying, will you do this? Will you come here? Will you do that? So I thought, right, okay. And then, of course, within a few weeks, we had lockdown. And the lady that I job share with had to shield.
Right.
She got the shielding letter. So the trustees, I work at the food bank, and I normally do Wednesday and Friday. And they said, would you cover Mondays and Tuesdays as well? Would you do full time? And we all thought it was only going to be a matter of weeks, didn't we?
Yeah.
But that extended. And after about week 4, I was going, God, you told me this and you did that and you did this. And I'm sitting here at a desk 5 days a week and it's not fair. I don't get it. And then again, the emails started coming in. Will you do Zoom this? Will you do Zoom that? And I realized I was covering more on Zoom than I could have done physically.
Yeah.
You know, I was doing burn sets in London and Dover. I couldn't have got to those places. I'm involved with National Heart of Worship that's based in Winchester. That was going to be goodness knows when I would get down there.
Yeah.
But because of lockdown, I was able to afford a laptop and a new iPad. So, the gear was coming in a bit.
Fantastic.
So I just said, God, you've got a real sense of humour here. So
it's amazing. Like Margaret said, I've just put it on screen. It's great how God leads us and provides, and He's faithful, and it just kind of, I think we need to be proactive, but actually, it's amazing how God brings everything together, and like you said, those emails, and I totally agree. There's times when I've kind of been wrestling in a little bit with God, and just kind of express, because it's a relationship, isn't it? So
yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. So obviously you connect. And thank the Lord for Zoom, etc., to be able to connect during these times and the opportunities that's brought. Absolutely. So how you're talking about the region? What kind of region are we talking about geographically? Then I know you've talked about North also, but what do you have in mind for that?
Well, I thought it was Burn Tyneside, which is Tyneside, but I was asking God about it. I'm really going to right, okay, and He said, Northumberland, and I went, okay, Northumberland. He went, no, Northumberland.
Right.
And I thought, yeah, exactly. I thought that's quite big. That's a lot. And I was praying one day and I got this picture of, it was a triangle, and it sort of went up the coast, came back over, and came along the Tyne. So I thought, oh, that's a lot as well. Yeah. But I didn't say anything. And I went to a meeting, and someone I was in the prayer group with, and he said, I have this picture of a triangle, and God's saying, that's what I've given you. And he said, and I see Northumberland and the North Humber of and I, okay. So if I needed any confirmation, that was it. So I'm not, as I say, I'm not exactly sure how it's going to look.
Okay.
To be honest, but I'm very much into, sort of making relations with people before asking to do stuff or go away places. But
that's exciting.
It's one of those things I can hear myself going, I can never do that. And I thought, remember what happened last time you said that, Lynn?
Love it. I love it. Just to say, people, if I'm sure you're enjoying, because I certainly am listening to Lynn and what, how God's moving through what she's doing, and how I love that. Yeah, I'm never going to do that, and yet God has other plans for us, and it just gives us opportunities and equips us. It's amazing. Just to encourage you, if you've got any comments or questions, you just want to kind of respond to what Lynn's saying, or you've got any questions, and just post them, and we'll obviously make time within the show to be able to do that as well, definitely. Lynn, I've mentioned it, and you've mentioned it a couple of times about the Burn 24/7 worship movement. When we're talking about burning, and people might get a little bit concerned if they're not sure about, what does it we mean, burning? Are we kind of pyromaniacs here? Are we a little bit fire starters, or in a good way? Hopefully we are. Tell us a little bit about the Burn worship movement, the Burn 24/7.
Well, the founder was a guy called Sean Foyt. And all he did was he took a guitar in his university dorm and sat and worshipped, played and worshipped, and people joined him. And then somebody said, can I do that somewhere else? And it just grew and grew. And he came over here, and it actually, it was William Byng from Durham,
Yeah.
who was one of the pioneers for this country.
Yeah.
And as a worship team, we would go over to Durham and play a set at Burn.
Yeah.
And then William asked if I would be interested in actually starting a Burn from this side of the river. And at the moment, well, I've always had it based in our church because our church is very accessible. I felt God was saying, keep it here. And even then, normally some burns move around different churches or buildings in an area. And God's just said, I want you to stay at the Bay and I want you to work from there.
Right.
And I said, well, do you know what a burn is? Because I'm supposed to take it around and I'm supposed to do this, that, and the other, you know? And he said, no, stay. Just stay there. And then one day he said, right, now let's see about going to other places. So I approached a few people that I'd got to know, leaders from different churches. And I think because we'd stayed in one place and grew and established, they could see that actually all it is anywhere from normally 4 hours. I've done 24 hours of worship where it's like you said earlier, we're a church. We are a church. Doesn't matter which building you're in or what you call yourself. We're the church. Yeah. And when the burn is on, that's what it is. There's no introduction of, oh, this is the team from such and such. It's supposed to be seamless, but doesn't quite often work. It's just someone takes a set. It could be 30 minutes. It could be an hour of worship. And then the next person comes up and does another. And that's all it is. It's just worship. I love to have some intercessors there as well to lead prayer and just bring the prayer in as and when, and we bounce from that. But basically, that's what it is. It's hours of just being in God's presence and worshipping Him because He's worth it.
Yeah, and just for those people who maybe haven't been to a burn type event, it is musical worship, sung worship mainly. Like you say, we're in with prayer in between, as and when, and so. Yeah. But it's if you haven't been, it's not like and I think that's important, like you said, it's not like a battle of the bands kind of approach. And now we have and from here and next set and that kind of like you say, it's that seamless. And I think that's a really special part of a burn event because I've attended them. You and I have been at the same kind of burn events in different places on occasion when we've met before. And I know that in the Teesside region, there's been burn events in Stockton, and we're hoping to, as lockdowns, COVID's kind of got in the way a little bit of that. But we're looking to establish that. I mean, I would love, and I've talked with, you mentioned William Byng from Durham, who's an amazing fellow. He's a great guy, and actually. I can't remember the date exactly. I think September time, after this series finishes, I've actually invited a number of different people that I know who were involved in church-based, Christian-based organisations. Might not church leaders, but leaders of different charities and organisations and so on. And William's agreed to do one of the to talk about that. So that's going to be an amazing session. So look out for that. He's an amazing guy. But I love it that we I've been talking with him and said I'd love to see something happen in Darlington, but we, that's very early phase. That was just before kind of lockdown happened and everything else like that. We'll see what happens. But it's something amazing about the church coming together and just spending that time in worship, in and they're really amazing times together. I'm very impressed that 24 hours is hardcore, isn't it? That's
it is.
Yeah, and absolutely. We've got the event, David's Tent coming up fairly soon. It's happening down south. Have a look for David's Tent. I've never actually been. Are you going? Have you got plans to go there?
I'm not sure if we're going this year. Yeah. We've done every other one though. Yeah. Fantastic.
Amazing.
And that's really hardcore.
Yeah.
If you can do the 24/7 for every day, but it's special. One thing that I stress about Burn as well is even in the emails, you don't have to stay for the whole thing,
Yeah.
because you get people who think, well, it starts at 2:00, but I don't know if I can stay till 10.
Yeah.
I don't expect you to. If you want to, that's fine, but
Yeah.
come in and enjoy God's presence. And I took a couple of burns up to different, outside of our area, to churches who hadn't experienced just a worship time where they could just sit. And it's wonderful because you look out and you see people sort of thinking, what's going to happen here? And then they realize, oh, hang on. And you can see them, like the physical, they relax
Yeah.
and they engage with what's going on, but they engage with God. And one woman said to me, I didn't know I could worship like that.
Mm.
Again, job done.
Yeah, absolutely. I love
You
it.
know,
Absolutely.
and when you said about worship leading, I look at it as encouraging people to go where you go, because our job, our role is to worship God in His presence.
Yeah.
The thing that it is that He doesn't just invite us into the throne room; He expects us to be there, because
Yeah.
we're supposed to be with our Heavenly Dad, and we're expected to be there. Yes, He's invited us, but that's our that's all right. We can be there. So when I go in with it, that's where I want to be. I'm going straight in there, and I would encourage people to go, but you can't force people to go.
No.
You can encourage them. And some people, there's a lady in our church said to me, I look at where you are and I go with you, and I want to be where I know you are,
Yeah.
where you're worshiping. And I thought, right, okay. Because you can push and push, but we're not supposed to do that. And then you see people who maybe you think aren't engaged in worship, but just because they're doing something different to everyone else doesn't mean they're not.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. That's
You
I
know,
mean, that's a tough one in itself, isn't it? Because
yeah,
having been there and myself and kind of looking out, and you think, the term worship zombies kind of spring to mind sometimes. You just think, what's happening? And being sensitive to that, and you can't always. We know this, don't we? We can't always judge that on kind of outward signs. Although I do say, on the other hand, that passion. If you're passionate about something, it overflows. You get whatever whether you're talking about, because you said I was a football nut when we were talking about, when we met earlier on online. But if I'm passionate about a football team and whatever, I can't help but get animated.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's a real tough one. There's time to be loud and animated, but then there's a time to be, and this is what I think the Burn events are very
yeah.
very personal and intimate kind of environments, really, and that's what I love about them,
Yeah.
in particular. So yeah, it is. So let's think then a little bit more. I mean, I'm interested. Obviously, you mentioned songwriting earlier on, which is great, but maybe as part of that, we can get to that. How do you prepare then if you're, you've been asked to lead a worship time, whether it be in a Burn event or in a church service or whatever? What's your I'm interested. What's your kind of process, if you like? Do you have steps leading up to that? How do you prepare?
It's quite an interesting one, because I don't just lead at my church, I do lead other places.
Yeah.
And I'm very much aware that I am there to serve.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's no good me going in with an armful of songs that I like, and they get me into God's presence kind of attitude,
Yeah.
because you could be singing something that your whole set might be things that people don't know, and that does stop an engagement.
Yeah.
So my first thing is I follow God, I follow the Holy Spirit, and say, right, what do you want? How do you want this to go?
Yeah.
But still being aware that maybe the church that you're going to, there's a ministry I'm involved with that I go and lead worship at, and the guy who ran it said, mine, they're about 15 to 20 years behind with what's what the songs, the popular songs are,
Yeah, the
worship songs
current,
are.
if you want, the current
Yeah,
releases and things. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
So, but that's fine
Mm,
because God will speak to them, and you speak to me as well
yeah,
through whatever He wants to do and however He wants those songs to flow.
yeah,
So I listen to God. I listen to God, the Holy Spirit, first and foremost,
hmm,
but with the knowing that I'm going in to serve a church. I'm going in to serve, and I'm going in not to manage the presence of God, but to steward whatever presence
sure, yeah,
is there
brilliant.
and to encourage people
Yeah,
to maybe step out. Some people, when you, depending what kind of church you're in, we can take it for granted that because we raise our hands in church, that every church does and every church doesn't.
no, that's right. Yeah,
So
I agree.
something as we would say old school.
Hmm.
Some people still aren't free to do that. They still stick to everything. But if you can be there and just say, all right, God, what do you want me to do? How do you want this to go? What do you want to say to the people?
Mm,
Is there something? It could be singing a line twice. To some churches, is or repeating a chorus
yeah,
is like, wow, it's out there, or not starting at verse one
yeah,
could be major for them.
yeah,
Um, but just saying, right, I've come to serve you, and I will encourage you to find the presence of God because that's where He wants you to go.
absolutely. Yeah,
And when you see people engaged with God, who have never known the presence of God like that.
mm,
I was leading at a meeting once, and there was a man who I wouldn't say he wasn't engaged, but it was difficult. In sort of, I thought, right, God, I give you this. Was whatever you want to do. And at the end of the meeting, I said, he stood up, and I thought, oh, here we go.
yeah,
And he said, I have had an amazing night. I have never met God. I've never been in God's presence in the way I have tonight. I was
fantastic.
like, oh, you know, um, yeah, I'm very much, we have to serve each other.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
what it's about.
Yeah, and I
Um,
totally agree. Like you say, particularly if you've been invited, and again, I'm thankful that I do get the opportunity to go to different places as well. And it's such an honor and a privilege to do so. And particularly, like you say, if you've been invited to somewhere else, and absolutely keeping that perspective that you're there to serve them, and we want to encourage everybody in that to engage, to meet with God, to to soak in His presence, and worship music is a great way to be able to help that
oh,
focus
yeah,
that journey. Yeah, and so I think it's vital, like we have those conversations as well as spending time preparing, like you said, and hearing from God, hearing from the Holy Spirit, and sometimes laying aside a little bit of our own personal preferences in terms of song choices and stuff,
yeah,
to be able to you know um, help engage those presents. And like you say, and I've been in that situation like you described of I didn't start with verse one and things like that. I went straight to whatever, and it, I saw some people's reaction to that. I thought, wow, okay. um, I mean, like we said, we're all one church. There's just lots of different
yeah,
flavors of that,
yeah.
and it's trying to, you don't want to alienate yourself,
No,
from them, and
no.
and and what I've said, personally, and to a certain extent, it's understandable, particularly over our COVID kind of restrictions.
Mm.
That worship can almost be like a passive thing now, because it's almost like somebody at the front as another screen. Whereas
Mm.
we know, don't we, that worship is an active thing. It's a personal, active response to what God's done and is doing, and the Holy Spirit's doing and things. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So tell us, a little bit about I mean, I love this, the songwriting. How, obviously, how did that kind of come? I mean, have you written songs yourself that are sang in your church now? And yeah, brilliant, fantastic. Tell us a bit more
Yeah.
about how that came about and how that works then.
Um, I just it was a few years ago, must have been about 15 years ago. I was sitting sort of just going through some songs, and I just got some words in a tune,
Yeah.
and I thought, oh, that's novel. Um, and sort of just kept it quiet. I didn't say anything for quite a few weeks, and then another one. So I was sitting, and I just felt prompted to write the song down, and I thought, oh, that we could, I felt a little bit more confident about that one, so I took it and I said, I've like written a song,
Yeah.
and a few people, well, a couple of people in the team had, and we used them, but and I took mine and we're going, oh, this is really good, and we started that, and we just encouraged each other to write songs. But I've written quite a few. We've used a lot of them in church. I released a CD of some of my stuff a couple of years ago,
Right.
which was an achievement in itself. It took ages because we should have done what the producer told us to do in the first place, but we didn't. But it was a great learning curve as well, and it's lovely to actually hear, because we did it as a team. They were my, songs that I'd written, but we did them as a team.
Yeah.
So it's lovely to hear it, because we know, I know what so and so looked like when they did that. I know what the other person was doing when they played that.
Yeah.
And the presence of God was always lovely. It was good. And going back to what we're saying about sort of worship and encouraging congregations. It's lovely to see a congregation or people within a congregation actually respond to the song that you've written and get it. I used a song last week when I was doing a worship set for the Healing Centre, the Northumbria Healing Centre Healing, and I explained how and why I'd written it, and that spoke as much as the actual song did. The song came as a reaction to the experience that I had in the presence of God, which was so, it just impacted me so much that even now, sitting here, I still feel that. I'm still impacted by that. And that experience I had influenced things that I did, how I thought, how I worshipped, how I responded, and encouraged me to actually say why I wrote the song.
Yeah.
Why did I do that? How did that come about? And it's lovely, as I say, to actually see people not just join in the song, but obviously it hits home for them as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, there've been a few.
Yeah, they so people are connecting with that, and that's helping them express. They can connect what the sentiment of the song's about, and helps them express what they're feeling and their affections or viewpoints to God.
Yeah, it's about being vulnerable and saying, this is what I've done because of this. And yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I've done a little bit of songwriting in the past, and it's not something I've done for a good while, to be honest. And my experience has been when I've been in a team, and this was a number of years ago now, where we were playing regularly together for a particular monthly worship event in the region, and I love that. And if you notice, actually, it happens quite a lot now in terms of co-writing. I would get, I tend to get the musical side of things a little bit more. That's a nice progression, or that's a nice little, kind of riff or something like that. And I might have some idea of words, but they don't flow as well, for me. Right. And so my experience is really when that importance of a team, like you said, is somebody else might get a little bit, and right, that would fit, and and so that again might be different ways. So, but I totally understand when that moment when I have done it once. I think a number of years ago now, where I brought it to the team, and I did have some words and and it was like, it's so personal. You kind of think, are they going to like it, kind of stuff, and then to see people in a meeting, responding, like you say, connecting with that, and you're thinking, wow, this is just an absolute privilege. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And like Margaret's just posted here, she said it's a wonderful gift, and I'm so thankful that God is using so many different songwriters, some well known, they get, but actually what's really important is the local church expressing the
Very
seasons
much.
that they're going through, so that local
Yeah.
people can connect with that. And like absolutely so important. I said we would respond to some questions, and there's been a couple of questions come up. This one's from Alan. Now, Alan's like I said, leads Embrace Church, and Alan does like his music, and he's kind of asking, are there any secular pop songs that you feel express the heart of God for you personally? It's an interesting question. So secular kind of stuff.
I think there's at the moment, well, from about the middle of last year, there seems to be a lot of secular songs that are becoming more, I think we'd say spiritual
Yeah.
than ever. And some of the songs that you hear, you think, wow, where are you coming from on this, Off the top of my head, I can't. I mean, the obvious one for me is Mary, Mary, Shackles. But I mean, that is a praise song. But the funny thing was, it's personal to me because we were given a car a few years ago when the kids were little. We couldn't afford one. We were given one.
Wow.
And we got in, and being music buffs, the first thing we did was put the radio on, and that was on.
Wow.
Mary, Mary, Shackles.
Yeah.
For the first 3 times we went out in the car, that song came on the radio straight away.
Wow.
And it was like, yes.
That's amazing.
But there are lines in songs. There's a couple of Rick Astley songs on his, I don't think it's his last album, I think it was the one before that, which he's talking about this, about praying and about there being something like someone else, some high. Well, there's the one out. What is it at the moment? Coldplay, Higher Power. I'm listening to that and thinking, Phil, well, where are you on this?
Yeah.
I mean, Robbie Williams put that line in, God laughs at my plans. But as I say, off the top of my head at the moment, I can't think of a particular one, but I am aware that there is definitely something going on.
There's a lot
definitely
of questions being asked.
Yeah. And I think that's where, we can step up and say,
yeah, absolutely.
This is, music is more than alive and well in church, and we put the answers in our songs. God's the answer. Jesus is the answer to this. Listen to this song.
Amen. Yeah. Just got another question. I'm just going to put it on screen as well from Mike. He's just, just for you a little bit more. But how do you know it's God speaking? How does He speak to you? Obviously you're talking about seeking His presence, and I know that we do that within worship sets as well. Being led by the Spirit. But how does God speak to you then in particular? Do you think?
As far as songwriting is concerned, a lot of the stuff that I include in songs is are words, and just I don't sit down and intentionally write a song. Say that straight. I don't do that. I did it once. I wrote a song, didn't like it, put it away, wouldn't touch it again. But I wait until usually I pick up a guitar and I get something. I get sometimes it's just a leading, and I can't, and it's into somewhere where I didn't think I would go. It's something that I wasn't thinking about. On a Sunday morning, I get that really strong butterfly feel in my head, and I hear phrases that don't normally. On Sunday, one of the other girls was leading worship, and we got to the end of a song, and we sometimes, what we call fly, we just, sing harmonies and stuff. And I just got this phrase over and over again that I was just singing it out, and another thing came and something else came.
Yeah.
But the very first time I ever heard God's voice, it was like I hear you. I was leading Our church was meeting in a school at the time, and we were standing down. It was the old-fashioned high platform with the red velvet curtains. We were standing in front, and I really, I mean, I think about it now. Somebody told me at the time, I would have just poo-pooed them. I think it was the first time I led worship, and came to the end of the set, and I heard someone say, "I haven't finished yet." Man's voice, "I haven't finished yet." And I turned to look at the guy who was leading on keys, and he like went, "What? Okay, it wasn't you." so, so I just kept going, and I, sort of, right, I'll try. Come to the end of the song, and I heard the voice again said, "I haven't finished yet."
Wow.
And I thought, it's gone from behind the curtains. So I turned round, really, and there was nobody there.
Wow.
And it was like, okay, right, so what do you want to do? And someone stood up from the congregation and said, "I really feel God wants to." So sometimes it's as clear as that.
Absolutely.
It's like hearing the voice. Other times it's a physical thing where I'm saying, right, God, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? One of the great things, we did a course at church some years ago, and I've just forgotten the name of the guy, Mark Verkler, about journaling and listening to God. And that we took that on board as a church, and that was massive for us. And a lot of time when I'm just sitting down and I'm praying, and God will just, I hear it.
Yeah.
I hear it, and I can be writing stuff down, and something comes that I'm thinking, this isn't me. I didn't think that. And I know it's different for everyone else. Some people will say, I don't hear from God, but maybe you hear. We all hear differently.
Yeah.
He does speak. He does speak to all of us, but we all hear him differently.
Yeah.
There was something that when I was praying. It was a couple of years ago. Could have been last year. Lost last year. And he said, "I'll come in the silence of the song." And I thought, yeah, that's how it goes. He'll come in the silence, and he'll come in the song. He'll come as a whisper, and he'll come as thunder. He'll come whichever way he wants.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, absolutely. Just to kind of follow up that question from Alan, Liz is just suggesting her, kind of current song in the charts.
Yeah.
I didn't know that she was a believer or whatever they call them.
Yes.
But there you go. And then, Mike is actually Liz's husband, both an amazing couple who come to Embrace Church as well, and both help lead worship. But, it is, isn't it? It's God turns our, like you said, right at the very beginning, the top of the show kind of thing. It's I'll never do that. And here you are, involved in so many different ways in doing the stuff that he's gifted you in doing. And I've just as somebody who's seen and heard you and lead worship, again, you do usher in the presence of God. Very sensitive to that, and singing out the prophetic, and it's amazing to be in there. So I've really appreciated those opportunities, and hopefully again in the future we can do that. However we do that. Hopefully next time we won't be in a wood full of midges where we were at the Cedarwood Festival just the other week, but and a little bit cooler would be nice. But no, it was great to kind of meet up in that situation. Cedarwood is a festival. Just do a search for Cedarwood Festival and keep an eye out for that as well. So, Lynne, we're kind of coming towards the end of our show now, but I always like to finish in the same way. And that is to put people on the spot a little bit. And I'm going to do a little bit of talking to give you a bit of thinking time. But the question I like to ask is, can you think of 3 what I've called worship bangers? All right? So 3 worship songs that have really, if you like, it's a Desert Island Discs kind of idea that, if you could think of 3 that maybe really speak to you or have meant a lot in a season, or just things that you really like, that would really speak, that would be great. And then we'll see what those are as well. So thank you, everybody. Do you know what, Lynne? There's not been that many questions tonight, and I think that is a reflection of just how much people have enjoyed listening to you. Not that I didn't want to say anything, but just how you've been able to express, everything that you've talked about fully and explaining, and obviously being so interested. And I certainly know that there's a lot of people like Margaret here who's kind of said this, that we're living in exciting times, and I totally agree. And it, again, she made that comment, and I'm just going to put it again on the screen. It's great how God leads us in all of this. And then just to put, Mike's comment back on again, and even particularly God's leading when He turns our plans upside down and things like that. Yeah. So, have you got any ideas then? Your 3 worship bangers, what would they be?
I've got definitely 2.
All right, okay.
Because it just depends, sort of, what I'm listening to and where I am in a particular moment.
Yeah.
But the one that I wrote down straight away was Third Day's version of Hallelujah.
Right.
Have you heard that one?
I've not heard that version.
Oh, it's amazing. It's just loud. It's loud. And then it drops and Mac Powell comes in with Hallelujah. It's amazing. Absolutely
is it
amazing.
The hairs on the back of your neck kind of stand up?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And we saw them live at the Frenzy Festival in Edinburgh about 10 years ago. And he did it then. It was like, oh, take me now. That's it. There's nothing more I need in life. Is that?
So Third Day, Hallelujah, yeah?
Yeah. Love Matt Powell's voice. It's gorgeous. Yeah. One of my favourite songwriter singers at the moment is a guy called Corey Voss.
Right.
Check him out. He's got one of the songs that we're using at the moment, which is just beautiful. It's called Let There Be Wonder. I think he wrote it with Matt Redman. Beautiful, right. Beautiful song. It's the one I've actually claimed for our church. I've claimed that one for our church. Let this place be an upper room where your people learn to pray. Let this house become holy ground where your children learn to wait.
Yeah, amazing.
A beautiful, beautiful song. But for other ones, there's not one that comes straight to mind, because there are things that have happened when you walk into the room was massive, because we had people who were very seriously ill.
Yeah.
And we used that one as prayers over people. I do like David Crowder.
Right.
Okay. I like his last one, and I've just forgotten where it is. And it's on here. It's on my laptop that I'm using. Yeah. I think it's something like Good God, something like that. It's fantastic sort of choral thing going on with the chains and the beards and some lovely stuff. But I think with a lot of people, there's a lot of versions of How Great Thou Art.
Yeah.
That's been a family favourite for a long time, and and with my parents and older members of the family. So not particularly a particular version of that, but that's always gets you.
Well, do you know what, Lynn? I'm very impressed you've been able to name 3, because actually, when I've asked other people in the other kind of previous episodes, they've really struggled to be put on the spot and come up with something. Like, you were the most definite out of the worship leader so far. So that's good. But did you? And I never preempted you as well, unless you've done a little sneaky look at some of the other episodes and knew that one was coming. No, it's great. It's great. It's fantastic. So. Lynn, it's been great to spend the last hour or so just chatting with you, and I'm sure I'm going to ask everybody now just to comment and question just to how much they've really enjoyed it. I know that Alan here has put it's very powerful. It's been very powerful to hear your thoughts and just an amazing work that you're doing. Not just with the worship leading, but like you said, your regional role in connecting, and that's exciting to hear that and what God's doing through all of that. The amazing work that you do at the Bay Church with the food bank, and you said that you work there a few days a week, which is amazing. And then recently, you said that Alan Dickinson, isn't it? Yeah. With the street pastors, has launched that as another amazing ministry as
that's
well.
It's been going quite a few years now, and they actually won a Queen's Award.
Wow!
A few months ago, so it's
fantastic. Such an important,
really,
ministry.
It's worth God's done some amazing stuff in Whitley Bay through street pastors.
Yeah, brilliant.
Been terrific.
So, Liz is there, you can see she's commented and said, thank you so much. You know Liz as well. We obviously we were catching up the other week, like we say, with Cedarwood, and Mike and Liz were both there and alongside me when we were doing our slot. But it was great to be there. Really enjoyed doing that. And being with others as well. It was, certainly looking forward to getting burn events back up and running in the area more regularly and things. And But no, it has been a really amazing. It's been great to kind of catch up with you a little bit more. Margaret says thanks everyone as well, so which is great. Have you enjoyed it? Has it been okay?
I have. I can't believe it's an hour.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I like that other song as well, and I like.
There's always just so much more we could chat about it and so on, isn't there? So.
Gregory Porter, Take Me to the Alley.
Right.
Have a listen to that.
Okay.
His mother was a Methodist minister, and he wrote that, and it's about when Jesus comes back. Don't be surprised when he says, "Take me to the alley," to meet the people who are just lost.
Yeah,
fantastic song.
I'm a little bit distracted. Sorry about that, but my naughty puppy is up at my was all just here. So that was the barking. It wasn't a sound effect I put on. You mentioned as well, Lynn, that you recorded some of your own songs on a while ago.
I did.
Are those available to listen to? Can we get hold of those? Can we listen to them if anybody wants to?
Yeah, they're on Spotify.
Right.
They're on. They were uploaded to Amazon. I haven't put anything. I was really shy about them, Dave. I should have. I should have taken note of my husband, who was saying, "Get them out." But I was just really sort of shy. But I'll get a copy to you.
Yeah, no
so
worries.
at least
if they're on Spotify and things like that, yeah, great. Then we'd love to. What do we need to search for? Is it your name?
I think it's the Bay Band.
The Bay Band.
Or the Bay Church Band. I can't remember which. The CD is called Now Is the Time.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's got a beach effect with a tide going out.
Right.
And I wrote it in the sand.
So everybody have a look for that and listen to that, and obviously connect with Lynn online. Obviously via social media, and certainly check out the Bay Church as well. They do amazing stuff, and Burn 24/7 as well. That certainly have a look. So Burn Tyneside you can search for, and there's many burns across the world, in fact. And like I say, in the future we've got William Bing from Durham, who's certainly a really amazing guy who's heavily involved in that as well. So, Lynn, thank you ever so much for giving up Wednesday night.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
I'm glad you've enjoyed it, and the time always goes so quickly, doesn't it?
It does. It does. Looking forward to seeing you soon, Dave.
What I'm going to do is I'm just going to just tell the people, if I go back to this view, of course, if you want to find out a little bit more about Embrace Church, or again, have a look for the Bay Church in Whitley Bay, look online for that on social media and so on. You can connect with Embrace Church via Facebook, of course, and our usual social media channels. If you haven't got this live, I will be uploading this as well to our YouTube channel, so check that out. And of course, so you can look at Twitter as well. So Embrace Live is going to take, for the next couple of weeks, we're going to take a holiday, all right? That's because I'm actually going off on holiday. So we'll be back towards the end of August, and we'll actually start a new series of, like I mentioned earlier in this show, that we're going to be talking with different leaders, people who were influential in different church-based or Christian-based organisations doing different things. So we're going to be talking with Rachel Ezra, who kind of heads up the team, who kind of put on a youth festival each year called Kairos. So we're going to hear a little bit more about that. But like I say, the next couple of weeks, we will be on holiday, and then we shall be back. But we'll make sure that we post about that. Okay. So thank you ever so much for joining us. Have a brilliant week. And if you're getting a break, even better. If not, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. All right. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.